Hello. Happy Thursday, everyone. Yes, yes, yes. Happy holidays if you celebrate. Happy New Year. I need it so desperately to get this done before next Monday because I have been so horrible at getting these done in a decent amount of time. So just a heads up, I'm going to go ahead and jump in because it's a lot. So, I know in the thumbnail it says 80 plus because I wasn't sure what my final number was going to be. And my final number is actually like one in between like 154 and 157. So that's a lot of books to cover for 1 month. I know typically people do their anticipated releases for the entire year, but last year, if you're new here and you didn't know, I changed up to doing these as live shows because it was just too much editing and stuff on the back end because of the number of new releases that I see. Now, granted, keep in mind that I am not going to read all I can't read all of these books. I would love to. Um, but I selected some titles that I thought people would be interested in. And then I also selected titles that I would be interested in. Keep in mind that I also include a wide selection of titles. So this is not just adult stuff. This is adult, YA, middle grade, and children's. So we are going to see a wide variety. I apologize to your TBRs in advance. Actually, I don't. I think Aaron told me in someone's live, it was in Brandy's live this week, that get a kind of sick and twisted enjoyment out of making everyone's TBRs longer, which I can't lie there. So, because there are so many titles this evening, what I'm going to do is I know I usually interact while I'm doing this, but I think this is the most amount of new releases that I have covered since I started doing these as lives, maybe back in like September. So as a result, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the weeks. So y'all know that I break it down by week. I don't want to assume because there could be people here who've never seen one of these before, or someone watching this on playback that's never seen this before. Tuesdays are major release days for publishing. Indie publishing, of course, is a little different. They don't work on a necessarily set schedule, but most publishing companies do release on Tuesdays. Tuesdays is typically major release day, although you will see some other releases that are scattered throughout um, the rest of the days of the week. There are 5 weeks, 5 Tuesdays, I should say this, 5 Tuesdays in January. And so what I'll do is I will cover a week and then I will go back and look at the comments then. So we are going to go ahead and jump in the week of the week of January 2nd. We have I'm multitasking here, so I have my other device near me. 45. So there's 45 for us to cover just on January 2nd. All right, let's jump into it. Y'all ready? Everybody give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Drop a thumbs up emoji if you can in the chat. That way I know everyone's good to go. I don't want to start before anyone is ready for me to start. Because the amount, I will say the trend that I noticed for January, as everyone is getting themselves prepared, the trend that I saw in January, it's a lot of thrillers coming out in January. I don't know if that's like a thing. I have never noticed this before, but there are a lot of thrillers that are dropping January of this year. So, all right, I see a lot of thumbs up. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, week of January 2nd. So we have 3 books, 2 of them being adult thrillers, one being a beginner reader. The first one we have is First Lie Wins, an adult thriller that I thought had a very, very interesting premise. I actually do have this one on hold for myself at the library. Um, the kind of like the tagline for this one it's a main character by the name of Evie Porter. Um, she has a doting boyfriend, a house with a white picket fence, a group of great friends, and then the the line that they drop is, "The only catch, Evie, Porter does not exist." So, when I did a little bit more reading on this one, because this is one that really, really kind of, like, drew my attention, and I think this one is getting a little bit of buzz, she actually works for a person that she's never met before. And this individual gives her tasks to complete. And so the premise of this book is that she actually is given a task to handle with another character, and things don't go exactly the way that she plans. So interested to see what the twist is going to be on that one. Next, we have Words Are Magic. This is a beginner reader. A lot of books have been coming out lately about Zayla Avant-Garde, who was the Scripps National Bee Spelling Bee champ. She is the first, I think she's the first Black American that has won the National Spelling Bee. So there's been a couple of books that have come out about her. Um, a couple that I think she's done one her, maybe she's done two herself. I know she's done like a YA nonfiction book. She's done there's a picture book, and then this is the beginner reader. Um, the last one on this slide is Anna O, which this one also is one that I have on hold because I thought it was so fascinating. It starts off with the description basically saying that, we spend, which I did not know this, that we, on average, humans spend about 33 years of their life sleeping, which, if you think about the average lifespan of a human, that's it's kind of disheartening that you spend a good portion of your life sleeping. um, so Anna, the main character, actually ends up um, stabbing two people to death with no motive, nothing whatsoever. She stabs two people to death, and then instantaneously after committing two murders, she goes into a sleep-like coma. And there's a name for it, but it's I forget what the name is, but in the whole grand scheme of all of this, she's dubbed the Sleeping Beauty. And so there's another character who ends up trying to figure out what exactly happened, because eventually she does start to stir and wake up. And they're trying to be careful about it because when she wakes up, of course, they want to take her to trial for the crimes that she has committed. But um, no one knows what that motive was. And the disease is called the psychosomatic disorder, known to neurologists as resignation syndrome. I had never heard of that before. So the fact that she killed two people and then instantaneously went into a coma, it like, I was like, wait, what? I had never heard of that before. So another adult thriller. All right. Next we have a middle grade contemporary by an author that I really, really enjoy. Her name is Lisa Yee. And she's coming out with a new one next year called The Royal Conundrum. This is the first book in the Misfit series, and it follows a main character who gets sent to a it's like a reform school, but what she ends up finding out is that it's a group of kids that are around the same age as her, that are trained to fight crime. So that was a different, interesting premise that I was like, okay, that's unique. We have the third volume of the Sweet Valley Twin series. If you've ever read the old school paperbacks of the Sweet Valley Twins, they've been adapting these into graphic novels for middle graders, or middle grade readers. And this is the third one in the series. And then we have another thriller, which this one also I think the premise for a lot of these thrillers actually sounds pretty interesting. So this one is called The Ascent, and it is about a cop that is somehow he ends up at this high security prison, and randomly all of the security systems within the prison completely fail. And so it's him, and I believe it's the governor's daughter, are teaming up with other people so that they can navigate how to get out of this prison and make it to the roof so that they can successfully escape. There's no way, and it's a high max prison, and I think it's some of the most notorious criminals in that state are housed in this prison. And so it's kind of like a fight to make it out alive in this situation, which I was like, dang, that would scare the hell out of me. All right. Next we have another graphic novel. I tend to feel like Pizza and Taco is more so on children's side. So anywhere like 5, 6, 7 before we hit that range of middle grade. This is the seventh volume, I believe, in the series. I'm not a fan of Pizza and Taco, but I know that some people who watch my channel do have younger readers that may be looking to get into graphic novels. While it's not a favorite of mine, I do think that Pizza and Taco is a good place to start for lower reading levels or like an entryway into younger readers who are interested in graphic novels. We have another beginner reader, which is Mobs in the Mansion for any of you who may know kids that are interested in Minecraft. They've been really, really, I don't know if y'all knew this, but there's so many different Minecraft like books, like novelizations that are out there. Um, and I forget which publisher has been doing a huge like footwork into publishing all of these different Minecraft novels that are from some bigger names in publishing, but now we're also starting to see more beginner readers. So this Minecraft beginner reader, and then we have a third beginner reader, which is Og Meets Mog, which is just Og is attempting to rescue Mog, and Og is a monster in this. It's supposed to be really, really cute, rhyming for those that have, little ones or people in your life that are interested in more beginner or leveled readers. We have another beginner reader coming out. I read one of these this year that was about Batman. So if you have younger readers that are really, really interested in race cars, one that I read was about Batman. It's the same one kinda like in the series, Bat Wheels, and this one is about Redbird, and it is just they're really, really simplistic, y'all, like, there's not really much to these. There's not reviewing them is kinda hard because it's like there's not really much material to review, but I usually look at these for more, like, interest level, like, this is something that my kid would like. She's really into, like, race cars and stuff like that, and Batman, superheroes, and so it's kinda like the perfect combination for her. So I think about stuff like this, whenever I see it releasing. The next one that we have is called The Book of Fire. This is an adult fiction title. It takes place in Greece, and it's a family. It follows a family who pretty much have like a decent life until a wildfire breaks out. And the mother of the family ends up somehow coming into contact with the guy who started the fire. And he's already dying. I don't think they really explicitly say like what he's dying of, but she makes a split second decision, which from the description when I read this, it appears that I think she killed him because the fire cost the whole community everything. But then his son, I believe, comes back into the picture and is trying to figure out what exactly happened to his father. So it pretty much causes some chaos if you like family drama, little murder mystery kind of mixed in there, taking place in a different area of the world. I am interested in picking that one up. The next one is Wild Distant Seas. This is another adult fiction. This takes place, it starts off in the um, mid 19th century. It takes place in Nantucket. And it follows a main character who loses her husband at sea. And she makes some really interesting decisions that end up having effects and impact on generations that come after her. So, if you like stories, I think that follow multiple generations of people, that might be one that you would be interested. Nantucket is up. Don't ask me the state because I'm not gonna sit here and embarrass myself. But it's up north. It's in northern part of the United States. I can I can tell you that. That much I can tell you. Um, all right, next. This is one that I'm really, really interested in. This is one that I have on hold for myself. The Storm We Made. This is an adult um, historical fiction. This one takes place in 1945 Malaysia. Um, and it follows a main character by the name of Cicely. I'm hoping that I'm saying that right. And it deals a lot with the Japanese occupation of Malaya. Sorry, Malaya. It takes place during 1945 with the Japanese occupation of Malaya, and she makes some decisions about who she comes into contact with in order to really kind of push back against that occupation. But the decisions that she makes ends up impacting all of her kids. So once again, another one where we have some kind of like family drama. There's some historical fiction laced into this one. I think I read Kirkus's review of this, and they said that the author gives some really, really great insight to the historical background behind the Japanese occupation, which I know little to like nothing about. And so this is one that really, really caught my attention. I think sometimes I get interested in books like this because as a parent, I'm kind of like, the decisions that you make can definitely impact your kids. And so the fact that she felt like she was making these decisions, she has feelings about the Japanese occupation, but then her decision that she makes comes back full force, is pretty interesting. We have another middle grade graphic novel, which is Teen Titans Go to the Library. I mean, if you're a fan of DC, like I've always said, DC and Marvel now are starting to incorporate more titles that are appropriate for a younger audience. If you have middle grade readers that are really, really into DC and Marvel, and you're like, there's no way I'm giving them Spider-Man, Batman, that stuff as it's published for adults. They do have stuff like this that's starting to come out. I do have this one on hold for myself as well. I'm really interested in this. Um, Next we have Market Day. This is another beginner reader, but this is one of those I can read comics beginner readers. So I like to think that there's like different stages of entering comic and graphic novel reading. So now publishing has kind of dived into creating beginner readers or level readers, but they're comics. So these are for like emerging readers, kids who are just now starting to become independent readers, and also have this interest in comics. And so Market Day is one of those that will be comic style, but the text itself is built for a emergent reading. Emerging reader. These really became a big thing this year, and I'm happy to see that that trend is kind of carrying over into 2024 because for once, people are starting to kind of recognize that graphic novel and comic reading is real. It's just as valid, although people have been saying that for years, for years. All right. The next thing that we have here is Light and Air. This is a middle grade historical fiction book. It takes place in the 1930s and it follows a main character and her mother that are both diagnosed with tuberculosis. And they get sent to a hospital in upstate New York. And it's kind of an adjustment period while they're there. Of course, because you're pretty much operating in complete um, isolation, except with other people who have tuberculosis. I believe it in this book, she does end up having further health issues that affect her lungs, but it's about her finding family and love and joy and friendship, especially in such an isolating situation. I think a book like this would be a good read for a lot of older kids, or I don't know, they would be probably in about middle school now that have experienced, the COVID pandemic. because the two definitely mirror each other, and a lot of people of that age group may not be aware that COVID pandemic is not the first time that people have had to be isolated for illnesses or stuff like that. So I'm really interested in that one. I'm not too sure if I've read a middle grade historical fiction that covers tuberculosis in this way, and so I'm looking forward to that one. Um, the next one that I have is a young adult graphic novel, which is another trend that I'm noticing in publishing that I'm not really mad at. Excuse me, I'll have to sneeze. Excuse me. I'm not really mad at this at all. They are starting now to also explicitly create more young adult graphic novels. Excuse me. Don't know what's going on here. Um, I I really do appreciate this because it's sometimes it can be kind of difficult, or it has been in the past difficult to recommend graphic novels that, in terms of content, readability, are great for young adults. And now they are explicitly creating tons of graphic novels that are for a teen audience. And so, one that they have coming out next year is Ghost Roast. And it follows a main character whose dad runs this paranormal removal service, and she absolutely hates it because she feels like her dad like cramps her style. It's like corny, but the twist of this is that she can actually see ghosts. So I don't know if she tells her father, but I do know that she tries to keep it a secret from everybody else. So it's just ironic that her dad is running this paranormal removal service and he wants her to help out, but she can actually see the ghost that he's trying to get rid of. So I think that'll be an interesting concept. I'm definitely looking forward to reading that one. Um, Last one on this slide, another adult thriller. Now, this one to me sounded really, really good. It's a main character who gets the opportunity to go on this once in a lifetime trip to Antarctica. Like, that's been her thing. That's what she wanted to do. She wants to go to Antarctica. And so it happens until so they're taking this boat essentially to Antarctica, and then things go left and people just start dying. So instead of going to Antarctica to enjoy her trip, she is attempting to survive. I couldn't imagine being in a situation where I'm isolated and then also headed to a continent that is nothing but a big clump of ice, and people are killing each other. So I thought that one sounded really, really sounded really interesting to me as well. I'm sorry I'm giving such a brief synopsis of these, y'all, but, like, with 150 titles to go through, I can't talk about each one too long because 'cause we'll be here all night long, and I still have to work in the morning, unfortunately. Alright, the next one that I have is My Block Looks Like. This is a picture book that is, in essence, what I would deem kind of like a love letter, to the Bronx. I believe that Frank Morrison did the artwork on this. It looks like Frank Morrison's artwork, and I absolutely love Frank. If you've never seen Frank Morrison's artwork, y'all, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I'm such a huge fan of it. This has been comped with titles like I Am Every Good Thing, Last Stop on Market Street. So if you're familiar with any of those books, this would be one that you would want to gravitate towards. The next one is another beginner reader, which I don't know if I've ever seen any of the other American Girls have beginner readers. This is my first time seeing this. I could be completely incorrect by this, but Claudia is getting her own beginner reader next year, which I was happy to see. And this takes place 1922 in Harlem. So if you have any younger ones that like American Girls, if you like American Girls, if you're a not flan, if you're a fan of Claudia, this will be one to check out. And then the last one that we have is Between Two Windows. So this follows two characters, Kayla and Mateo, who live close by, and they do all types of things like passing drawings to each other through their windows. And then eventually, and they do it through a clothesline. So eventually the clothesline gets taken down, and then they have to find new ways to keep their friendship going, which I think is cute. All right. Next, we have a middle grade contemporary. This is the unbeatable Lily Hong. Um, and this the cover of this one I thought was really, really cute. So this follows main character Lily, and she is a creative kid. From the description, she seems like she's a creative kid, big personality, very competitive. She was supposed to win a pizza party for her class during a reading challenge, and she lost to her rival by the name of Max, and she decided she's gonna enter a dance competition, so just a little bit of everything. Then she finds out that her parents, they run a, Chinese school through the community center, and it's not going well. Um, it's basically insinuated that um, the school is being closed, and so she decides that she is going to, um put on this big show in order to save the community center. But Max comes back into the picture because, he speaks perfect Chinese, is a great dancer, and then she realizes eventually that she may actually have to work with Max in order to make this thing happen. So, coming of age, friendship, typical middle grade stuff. The cover of that one's really cute, which made me gravitate towards it. Um, the next one that we have is Mercury. This one I think is getting some heavy press right now. I believe I received an arc of this one, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and look because I feel like I saw the email and then I didn't really. I've just been so busy, but I think I do have an arc of this one. This one follows a main character by the name of Marley, and Marley ends up meeting the Joseph brothers. There's three of them. This just sounds messy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm interested in this. It's probably not gonna be messy, but the way that it's set up, it just sounds messy. So she meets these three brothers. She ends up getting into a relationship with one of them, and it doesn't work out. He dumps her, right? And then she ends up in a relationship with, I think it's the middle brother because there's a baby brother. I think she ends up in a relationship with the middle child. And um they all have a relationship together, to be honest with you. Like, the way that it's described is that her role that she plays is that she's the one that got away to the oldest brother. She's the wife of the second one, and she plays like this mother figure to all of them. But really what she looks for from that family is kind of like the stability that I don't think that she necessarily had in hers. She really admires their mother, and wants to be like their mother, and ends up helping them run. I think they have a roofing business, um, and things just start falling apart, and so they kinda have to work together, to either save the family business or do something a little different. But it just sounds messy because I'm like, you know, that sounds like some homie hopping stuff, and granted, I ain't here to judge, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, I wouldn't, I don't know. When I look at this cover, I guess that's not what I was thinking. Because when I first saw the cover, I was like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I bypassed this one, and I said, "No, let me go back and actually read the description of this one. Let's just not do the whole cover nonsense." And I read it and I said, "Oh, this is kind of piquing my interest because not we got dumped by the first brother, ended up with the second brother. How do you sit at a dinner table together?" But, like, I mean, it's not too far removed from, Only for a Week, which is one of my favorite books of this year. But even anytime I think about any of those plots where it's like somebody ends up with a sibling, like, it's just like, if you're sitting in a room, it's like, dang, you slept with this person and this it just just like it's interesting. Um Very interesting. So I'm curious about that one. And the last one that we have on here is Skies End. This is a YA fantasy that is taking me back. The description to me is taking me back to some old school YA, where we follow a main character who is attempting to save his family from his uncle. In order to do that, he has to enter the selection of 12 trades, which, when I tell you that, it made me think of so many 2013, 14, 15 YA books. As soon as I saw the selection of 12 trades, okay, that sounds like so many other things. There's so many different things that I've heard of before, but he has to enter the selection of 12 trades. And he's doing this in order to save his family. But while he's in the selection process, he's hearing kind of rumblings of how do I describe this? What am I looking for? A rebellion. I'm like, what word am I looking for here? He's hearing the rumblings of a rebellion. So then I'm thinking, like, goodness gracious, Hunger Games. And I'm not saying that this book is like that, but I think that the concept or the themes here are things that we have seen in Y, which is not a bad thing because I'm sure it's going to have its own twists. But I was like, okay, um, let's see where this one may go. I'll give it its fair chance. All right, the next one we have is another picture book. This one's called Plus One. This follows a main character who wants to make friends. And so she she invites all these people to have a tea party with her so she can make friends in the neighborhood. But there's this kid who lives close to her that decides to come and knock on the door. Now, granted, she didn't invite this kid, but he decides to come over. And as he decides to come over, he starts inviting other people and beings. So I don't know if y'all can see, but if you look at the cup that's on the left-hand side, you'll see there's a tentacle wrapped around the cup. And so it's just this whole thing where she initially is like, I'm not going to participate in this. Like I didn't invite this kid in my house, and he's inviting all of these not even humans, just creatures, these beings. And eventually the people who are supposed to come do come. And so it's a story about um preconceived notions, making friends, and no matter what people look like, I think is the emphasis here. Granted, I haven't read it, but just from the synopsis, it feels like this is kind of this low key messaging of like, getting to know people for who they are and not what they look like. So, um, the next one I have is courtesy of Cupid. This is a tough one. Now, I say middle grade contemporary, but I almost feel like this one can run on the lower end of YA as well. I think this is the one that can flip flop. But this follows a main character. She's 13. She learns that her father is Cupid. And so because her father is Cupid, this is not the only Cupid romance, mind you, that I have in this list, which is I was like, maybe because February is the following month, I don't know, but ironically, this is not the only one. But she does learn that her father is Cupid, and she has a knack for romance the same way that her father does. Um, and so she has these magical powers, and so she tries to use her magical powers to get her rival to fall in love with her. Which of course, I mean, that's naturally going to complicate things. In no way, shape, or form would that not complicate things. The next one that I have is Like So. This is another picture book. And this follows, or it's narrated, I should say, from a grandmother slash nana's point of view. Um, and it's supposed to be an uplifting read aloud that shows how every family's love is innate, wondrous, and infinite, and it's connected to the world around us. So excited to see that. I think, oh gosh, what is her name? Ruth. I want to say her name is Ruth Foreman, but I feel like I am so wrong on that. I apologize. I'm gonna look this up because I didn't write her name down, but I'm pretty sure this is Ruth Foreman's picture book. Um, she has done beautiful, beautiful board books. I don't know if y'all have ever seen the board books like Bloom or Glow or Curls. Um, those have been coming out the past couple years. Roots, she just has a very distinctive style, and I'm pretty sure that this is. I'm pretty sure that is her work. I just would have to double check. The next one that we have is a children's biography, which the cover of this one is gorgeous. It's so beautiful. It is a new biography on Coretta Scott King, and this is adapted from her adult memoir. So if you're looking for a new biography for a younger audience about Coretta Scott King, that is the picture book to check out. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm kind of watching y'all and trying to move at the same time, but thank you, Reformer. Thank you, appreciate it. We have another middle grade graphic novel, which is Spider Ham, A Pig in Time. If you are familiar with anything in the Spider Verse, there are so many different versions of Spider Man. And of course, you have Spider Ham is a version. So this is his middle grade book. And he's supposed to stop Green Goblin or Green Gobbler. Gobbler. I forget what it's called in his universe. Correct me, please. And then we have a middle grade fantasy that is called The Selkie's Daughter. Um, and it is a book that focuses on a young girl that lives in this town where people are starting to kill seals, and it's upsetting the Selkie god. And she herself is part human, part Selkie, and she knows this. Like she has webbing that grows in between her fingers, and she pretty much hides that. And I believe that she's human on land, but will if she enters water, she does take on that Selkie form, if I'm not mistaken. And so she has to confront the Great Selkie, um, and help protect the young seals from harm. I believe that this is based in Celtic mythology, if I'm not mistaken. Starting to see a lot more. There's two trends that I'm seeing in middle grade right now. There's a lot of middle grade fantasy that has the school based element, which I think I may explore that a little bit more going into next year. There's a lot of that that's been coming out in the past couple of years, which I'm not mad at. It's good comps for kids who are still interested in reading Harry Potter or are not interested in reading Harry Potter. I think that a lot of these are serving as better works, to be honest with you. And then I'm starting to see a lot of middle grade fantasy that is leaning towards mythology. And I think a lot of that has to do with trying to compete with the Rick Riordan Presents line, which I have one of those titles on here today. Um, and it's interesting to see that because it can get kind of confusing because now, and it's my fault for doing this, is that every time I see a fantasy book, I'm thinking like, oh, is this the Rick Riordan Presents line? And then it's like, no, it's just a book about mythology. Not that it wasn't happening before him, but we're starting to see a huge influx of middle grade fantasy that is mythology based, which is good. I'm happy to see that. Next we have another fantasy, except this is a YA fantasy, and this is Dark Star Burning. This title, let me tell y'all something. I don't know. Like this title throws me every time I see it. Dark Star Burning Ash Falls White. That's a heck, it's a heck of a title. This is the sequel to Song of Silver Flame Like Night, which is just like so it's a YA inspired fantasy, but it's a YA fantasy inspired by mythology and folklore of ancient China. I think I currently have Song of Silver Flame Like Night checked out or on hold, one of the two from my library. So just in case you were wondering, the sequel is coming out. The next one that I have is The Reckoning. This is a middle grade contemporary book. This is by Wade Hudson. Wade Hudson and his wife recently passed away. They founded two very, very well-known names in the children's publishing industry. They founded Just For Us Books, which was a push to publish more books by Black authors, keeping Black children in mind. And so I've read a handful of their stuff. In the past couple years, I've read a few of Wade Hudson's books, and so this is his latest one that is coming out. And it's about a 12-year-old who's aspiring to be a filmmaker. That's like he wants to do it. He's super excited into it, except during the time of this book, he has to spend time with his grandfather. He's kind of upset about it. But he actually captures his, which this is gonna be a tough one, this is not gonna be for everybody, I know for a fact it's not gonna be for everybody because he ends up, witnessing his grandfather being slain in a senseless act of violence in which the person who ends up killing his grandfather, um, pretty much is like self-defense. And so he's having to literally reckon with that experience. So I know that that book won't be for everyone, but I do like Wade Hudson, and I probably will be picking that one up. And the last one that we have on this slide is Last Call at the Local. This is an adult romance that follows um, a heroine that is a American singer-songwriter and has ADHD, and she starts working at this pub, um, and at this pub, she's employed by the hero who has OCD, and they work together in order to kind of reinvent the business and make it more profitable, but they have 2 conflicting personalities. I can only imagine what that's like. And so they have to figure out how to work together, and then, of course, naturally, with it being an adult romance, the 2 will fall in love. Um, I just thought that the cover of that one was really, really cute. I'm basic when it comes to stuff like this. All right, this picture book that's coming up is one that I'm super, 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 super excited about. It's called When I Wrap My Hair, um, and it is a love letter to hair wrapping, and how it connects the past with the present, especially within the Black community. I am very, very, very excited for this. I remember the first time I learned how to wrap my hair. Granted, I don't have to do, I put a, stocking or a bonnet on, but I think just like how you're taught and what it means and how it connects to Black history. I'm just happy to see that this is a picture book that is coming out. The next one that I have is a middle grade graphic novel. This is Hip Hop, The Beat of America. These are history graphic novels. If you have even if you're an adult, but especially if you have kids that struggle with history and need it presented to them in a different way, because I know, listen, history can be kind of a drag for some people. If you're not interested in it, they have these history comic lines. This is part of that line. I own one of them. Um, I can't remember which one I own, but I do know that I own one of these. This is a great way to learn about like history, but in a comic book format. And so this one is specifically focused on the history of hip hop. And it follows a main character by the name of Aaliyah. She's a super fan of hip hop. Um, and so she gets a lesson in old school hip hop when she takes a day trip to the Bronx. And so her dad kind of walks her through all of the people or the heroes, the founders, that had laid the foundation for hip hop as we know it today. So I'm really, really excited about that one. I think, this year's the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And so I almost wish that this would have dropped this year, but I'm excited to see that it's coming out. There were a couple of children's titles that came out this year that celebrated the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and I'm just looking forward to that one. The last one that we have on this one is, I don't know. It feels like it'll be a middle grade fantasy, but I don't know. I think it will be The Five Impossible Tasks of Eden Smith. She randomly discovers her grandfather. This just starts. She randomly discovers her grandfather, and her grandfather is in this mansion that actually hosts metalsmiths. There's like this whole community of people. From the description, it's like there's this whole community of people that are housed specifically like in this one mansion. And he's locked away for rebelling against the guild. And so to kind of help her grandfather out, to get him out of imprisonment, she has to complete these five impossible tasks. And what's the twist on this is that they're deadly tasks that have killed off most of her ancestors, but she's going to take it on in order to save her grandfather so that they're not lost from each other for forever. It sounds interesting. Like, dang, like I'm going to enter into this thing to, complete these five impossible tasks knowing that they've killed everyone in my family prior. That's wild. All right. Next, we have The Curse of the Eelgrass Bog. Child, Lord, as much as I read, I can't pronounce not a thing. Um, Simple middle grade fantasy. 12-year-old ventures into this bog that is full of monsters because she is supposed to break a mysterious curse. The second one is the third in a series, and it's a chapter book series. This is one of those fantasy books that is great for like 7 to 9 year olds. There's been this huge conversation lately about middle grade becoming excessively long. The first series I think of is Keeper of the Lost, where we have middle grade fantasy books that are 7, 800, 900 pages. When you think about the impact that the pandemic has had on reading, I don't know. I mean, you have your very voracious readers out there that are still gonna, they're gonna read those 7, 800, 900 page fantasy books. Middle grade readers, not adults reading middle grade, but actual like middle school kids, who will devour that stuff. But as librarians, what we've been seeing a trend in, is a lot of kids coming in and looking at books like that, and they're like, "Yeah, that's too many words. That's overwhelming. I cannot handle that much text." And so what I this is a slow start because the problem was just brought to the forefront this year. The bigger discussion that people have been noticing it for a while, but the big discussion happened this year. There are some fantasy middle grade books because in library world and publishing, middle grade is a very, very broad age group. You can go anywhere from 8 to 12 when we say middle grade. That is the age range for middle grade, which is why I think sometimes when people pick up middle grade, they're like, why does this either it reads too young or people feel like it reads too old, not realizing that 8 to 12 is that range for middle grade, which is it's very it's a very broad range. Um, we are starting to see some middle grade fantasy books that are great for the lower end of middle grade, which I say 8, but even some would drop it as far as like 7. So like 7 to 9 ish. This is one of those series. This one is the third book in the series. I'm currently reading the first one. I picked it up, put it down, whatever. And so if you know anyone that needs that, I would recommend picking up this series. From what I've read, I mean, there's still illustrations in it. Great for fantasy sci-fi readers. If you're looking for something that's just a tad bit shorter, and more on par with their reading level, that's an excellent series to go for. Um, the last one that I have on here is Diary of a Confused Feminist. This for me, I think could potentially be a hit or a miss. It's a YA contemporary, follows a British teenager who is trying to be a good feminist. And I think that this is going to be interesting to see what the author defines as a good feminist. If intersectional feminism is addressed in this at all, as I said, this could potentially be a hit or a miss. But she's in high school trying to be a good feminist, and is going through the things that the average high schooler would go through and how to balance that out. I think one part of the summary it was like she was confused about like she was having feelings for a guy, but she didn't want to be defined by having, a man in her life. So it's just like there's a lot that could go with this. But I part of me is um interested in it just to see what direction this is going to go in. Um, all right, next one. All right, we have another young adult contemporary slash romance. This is another Cupid type of thing. This is what I was talking about. This actually follows a main character who is Cupid. And his primary job is, of course, is to bring couples together. Um, and their new assignment involves a couple of teenagers, except Jude, who's the main character, finds that they are becoming attracted to one of the people that they are assigned to in this mission. And so that, of course, naturally is going to get in the way and it's going to threaten their career. So, Mason Deaver, um, I don't think I've read anything by them, but we'll see if I get to that one. Next, we have a picture book, which is We Dream a World. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s granddaughter. It is her, I don't know if this is her first picture book or not. I feel like it might be. Of course, she is a well-known civil rights activist in her own right. But this one specifically looks at how newer generations can respect and honor the legacy of those that have come before them while also carving out a path of their own. So recognizing and honoring, like, we know who has come before us, but sometimes we have to find a means of doing our own activism in our own way, which I think could be an interesting conversation to have. And the last one on here is Stay With My Heart. And this follows a main character who accidentally sabotages an up and coming local band. She sabotages them and then tries to walk it back and make it seem like she didn't sabotage them and tries to undo it. And while she's in the process of trying to undo the things that she has done, she ends up falling for the lead guitarist of the group. So, or lead singer of the group. I don't know why I said guitarist, lead singer of the group. So if you're interested in that, contemporary romance type of stuff, I've heard some interesting things about Tashi Bhuyan. We'll see how I feel about that one if I get to it this year. This next picture book is one that I am super, 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 super excited for. This is Rapunzel and the Stinky Tofu. So if you're thinking Rapunzel, does it sound like Rapunzel? It does, definitely would sound like Rapunzel. This is a I don't want to say it's a spin on that, but it's like Rapunzel, but not really, because this takes place in China. It follows a young princess in China, and she does not want any princes to come and save her. She doesn't want to communicate with them. She doesn't want to follow the standards of what she is supposed to look like and act like and behave in the way that a princess is supposed to. She's not like that. All she wants to do is cook and eat in peace, which, hello, that is me. All right? Because let me tell you, to be able to cook and eat in peace, I can't even do that anymore. That is a blessing. So all she wants to do is cook and eat in peace. And have her hair braided in a way that it does not get mixed in with her food. That's all she wants. Very simple. And so she basically locks herself down, right? She puts herself in the tower, which is why I said it's not really, it's different, but reminiscent of Rapunzel. But she locks herself in the tower because she's tired of dealing with everybody. And I feel that energy to lock yourself away so you don't have to deal with the world. And so she refuses to communicate with anybody. She refuses to come down until there's a young chef that comes with some intriguing food. And then she's like, all right, well, the way to my heart is through my stomach. And so I think that one that'll be cute. Um, and the next one we have is a YA contemporary. This is Just Happy to Be Here. This follows a main character by the name of Tara. She goes to Ansley Academy. She is trans, and while attending this academy, she just wants to simply be known for who she is and not the fact that she is trans. And so it's difficult because there's no groundwork or roadmap, I should say, for being the first trans girl to attend an all girls school. And things get complicated when she attempts to join, kind of like, some of these preparatory schools have these like secret societies and stuff like that. And so she wants to join, but of course, it brings up conversations about girlhood. What does it mean to be in girlhood? What does it mean to be a girl, to be a woman, and whether this club at this school should really exist at all? I was just very intrigued by the cover before I even read the synopsis, but that's definitely one that's high on my priority list. And the last one that we have for this week is IDB Wells Marches for the Vote. This is a children's, I put nonfiction, but this is actually a children's biography that focuses on Ida B. Wells and her work as a suffragist and the critical role that she played in the Women's March of 1913. So, yes. Um, yeah. All right, y'all. How are we feeling? I need to take a vocal break for a quick second. That's only we have 4 more weeks. And we are 55 minutes in. But what in the world? That is only the first week. My God. It's a lot. I've been watching the comments. I'm not gonna scroll back. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not gonna scroll back up. I've been watching the comments though. Um, but yeah, that is the first week already. Whew. I knew when I was putting this together, I was like, damn, this is a lot. This is a lot. This is a lot. But it's a lot. It's so many books. It's a lot. We have only made it through 45. We have over 100 to go. We can do this. We gonna be no. We're only in January. This is only so for anybody here. I do my releases month by month because I wasn't gonna have enough time, right? I just it's a lot that comes out in the first part, like this seasonal wise. Like this is gonna be a heavy release time. And I feel like I would have to do 2 parts for every month. I just don't feel like doing it. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't feel like doing it. All right, let's jump in. I can't stay up to midnight either, Jennifer. All right, we're gonna jump into it. Week of January 9th. Here we go. There are, let me do a quick check here. I don't know how many there are because I did continuing numbering. So how would I know? Don't worry about that. There's a lot in this one too. It'll slim down as we get to the end of the month. All right, week of January 9th. Ooh. All right, the first one we have, My Friends. This one, I believe, is also starting to get a lot. I've seen this a couple of places. I don't know if that means it's getting a lot of buzz, but I feel like I've seen this title a couple times. This is called My Friends. This is an adult fiction book um, that focuses on a main character that ends up at the University of Edinburgh, but is originally from Benghazi, um, and forms a powerful friendship with an author who wrote a short story that ultimately changed his life. And he has to, as the Arab Spring erupts, he has to kind of, I guess, really think about and confront tensions between revolution and safety. Like, at what point do you engage in revolution? At what point do you prioritize your safety and your family? And so I feel like this one has been getting some traction. Could just be me, but that is one that I am interested in picking up. Next, we have a middle grade fantasy. This is Lulu. I'm gonna tear her name up. Lulu Sinagtala and the City of Noble Warriors. Forgive me. Forgive me. This is another mythology based middle grade. I From the cover, let me tell you. Um, yes, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt myself. Yes, the short story is about a man being eaten alive by a cat. Yes, it is. Um, this middle grade fantasy one is another mythology based one that is I thought it was Rick Riordan, but it's not. But it is creatures and deities of y'all. I'm gonna butcher this again. Tagalog myth. Hopefully I said that right. Um and her mom is kidnapped, and so she has to um save her mom, but in saving her mom she gets thrown into the centuries long war that's already been going on. um the last one on this is an adult fiction. This is one that I do have on hold, and it's Sugar Baby. I was like, yeah, that's all I needed to know. It's because the book is called Sugar Baby. This is um a main character. Her name is Agnes. She ends up moving in with these group of women. She's biracial. She ends up moving in with these group of women who are known to be sugar babies. That is a lifestyle that they lead, and so she decides that a part of um, she wants to be a part of their group and being sugar babies, and enter the world of high paid sex work. That's how the book is described. Is that is her wish, but when she enters it, she realizes that it's a lot more complicated than what she could have anticipated, and the girls that she's associating with have come from stability and wealth. And so she gets herself into some situations that she can't fall back on the cushions um that they have. And so she ends up in this cycle of looking for self-fulfillment um just as much as she was looking for self-fulfillment before she decided to join their group. I think that this one, in terms of its conversations about sex work and um, those who engage in sex work and um, have resources and I don't want to say because cushions can come off kind of weird, but just have the resources, the networking and support behind them in a way that this main character does not. I'm interested in seeing how that is going to play out. I want to be a sugar baby, hold the sugar. You want to be a sugar baby, but hold the sugar. All right. The next one is another YA graphic novel that's Lunar New Year Love Story. These titles, maybe it's because I'm exhausted, but y'all, I've never said this title out loud, mind you. So every time I look at it, I'm just thinking Lunar New Year. Like I haven't processed the whole thing here. Lunar New Year Love Story that's a heck of a title. This is another young adult graphic novel. It follows a main character who's pretty much like, yeah, I'm gonna give up on love. I'm over it. And she feels like she's cursed. But then um she has an encounter with a pair of cute lion dancers, and she's thinking that this might be her opportunity to fall in love. Next, we have an adult fiction, which is A Recipe for a Charmed Life. This is about a main character who's a chef whose life completely falls apart. Um, she had a career in Paris as a chef, and then, like I said, all of that falls apart. She ends up going to Seattle in hopes of rebuilding a relationship that she used to have with her estranged mother, and to hopefully reignite her passion that she had for cooking and being in the kitchen. But then she kind of discovers a family legacy that she had no idea about in the long run. Um, Last one we have is a picture book, which is I Am a Masterpiece. This is by author Mia, who has Down syndrome, and she uses this picture book to explain to people how she sees the world in a way that may not always make sense to people, but she considers it to be a super power. And instead of it being something that, she could say makes her strange or different, it's something that makes her a masterpiece. And so I like picture books with good disability rep. It took me a second when I first saw this cover and found out that the main character had Down syndrome. It's such a tricky, I think, thing to navigate in children's literature. I've seen it more so in children's literature to have good disability representation. Um, when you have creators doing the work that do not have the disability. And so sometimes there are certain tropes that can be introduced that are harmful. And so I was happy to see that Mia actually wrote this book herself. Um, and I'm looking forward to reading that one. Yeah, I'm struggling, y'all. I'm struggling with these titles, man. Like, because I think I see these titles and it's in my head, and having to say things out loud right now is not my strong. I'm fumbling the bag right now. Um, Golden Seal. This is a adult fiction book. I was interested in this one because it takes place in the 90s, but it's about two friends who reconnect 40 years after, and they clearly have not they have some stuff that has gone on. They used to be very, very close, but something has happened, and the secrets that tore their friendship apart slowly get revealed throughout the course of this novel. Child, I love me a messy book. And I'm not saying at the expense of these characters, but now I'm curious because I'm nosy. Because now I'm thinking, like, okay, well, what happened between the two of you that it takes 40 years? So that means that you were close friends up into the 1940s. And then part of me is thinking, like, okay, at this point, you have to be in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, right? So what happened between the two of you that you have not spoken from that time in the 40s up until 1990s, where you reconnect and everything gets put on the table? That sounds really, really interesting. Um, then we have the Atlas Complex. This is the conclusion to Olivia Blake's trilogy, which started with the Atlas Six. I have not read the Atlas Six. I do have it on hold. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. Just out of curiosity, I just wanted to give it a go. I may or may not like it at all. But the conclusion to the trilogy does come out in January. And then the last one that I have on this one is a adult fantasy, which is the Jen Waits 100 Years. This is about a main character who um, comes across, or not comes across, she's moving, and she's moving into a ruined mansion off the coast of South Africa. And while she's there, she stumbles across the story of someone by the name of Mina. And Mina is the original owner of the house's second wife. And she died there 100 years ago. Listen, let me tell you something right here, right off the bat. You will not catch me. I can't. I just the idea of I don't know. I know people do it and it happens in his life, but goodness gracious. So you move into the house where this woman died 100 years ago, second wife of the previous owner. Um, and in her death, she awakens a jinn. And the jinn has haunted the mansion ever since Mina's mysterious death. You can't, no. No, absolutely. Absolutely no. I know the cover does remind me of Evelyn Hugo, but no. All right. The next one is another adult fiction. This is Holiday Country. Um, this one sounds messy as well. I don't know if I just chose all of the messy, and that's it's very much so me, the drama. I love watching everyone else's drama except dealing with my own. This follows a main character who's spending a holiday in Turkey in the summer. She's spending a holiday with her family. Um, and there's a mysterious man who comes along. And the main character really wants, her mother to have this different life, right? And so this mysterious man comes along, and to my understanding, I believe that this mysterious man and her mother is supposed to be kind of like a setup type of situation, right? Getting this guy and her mother together, but then you find out she's attracted to the man too, and so she has to come to terms that she's attracted to this man as well. I'm like, wait, what? Wait. Because I could never. So now in my mind, I'm thinking, like, okay, is this man young? Is he old? Like, how is this going to play out? Where, like, you supposed to be setting up your mama, but instead of setting up your mama, you're in love with this man, or you're falling for this man, or you're attracted to this man. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, that's interesting. Um I'm sorry, y'all. The mysterious man is somebody from her mother's past. So now that makes it even more messy for me. That makes it even more messy for me because if this is a mysterious man from your mother's past, do they have a thing? Like, how old is this man? How old are you? And what is going on in this situation? I don't know. Okay. This next one is another kind of family-like situation. You only call me when you're in trouble. This is another adult fiction. Um, Follows a main character who he has some needy family members. Um, And so he kind of just he tries to keep the neediness, the messiness out of his life. But his sister and his niece end up needing his help. And if I'm remembering correctly, part of this has to do with the the discovery or the acknowledgement of who his niece's father really is. Child, that could go so many different ways. And so, it's like your sister's calling you for help and you like, stop calling me because you only need me. Like, that's why the cover, you only call when you're in trouble. And then she's calling because she's in trouble, your niece is in trouble. And I know that when I read the summary of this one, there was a piece of it that was talking about the real identity of her father. I, Next one, The Waters. Um, this is another family one. This is another family saga type of thing. Um, but I don't know if she's the main character or not, right? But this follows an 11-year-old who's the granddaughter of a herbalist and eccentric healer. And so her childhood gets completely flipped upside down over some family secrets. Um, I don't know what direction this could go in. Um, I think her mother is not completely in the picture. And so I think there's probably maybe some interconnectedness going on there, like discussions of family dynamics between the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. Um, but I feel like this one could get kind of dark. The cover of that one is very, 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 very beautiful. Next we have a YA contemporary. Shut up, this is serious. Um, this one to me is like I don't know how to process this one. So we're following a main character who is just wanting to lead a normal life as a teenager. But she's dealing with a lot because she's growing up in East Oakland. Her dad has left the family. Her best friend is pregnant by her boyfriend. Um and her best friend, if I'm remembering this correctly, super Catholic best friend is pregnant by her boyfriend, not the main character's boyfriend, but her boyfriend. But her best friend hasn't told her parents because he's black and her parents are racist. So you have a best friend that you're close to that's pregnant by a black teenager and she hasn't introduced him to her family because her family is racist. So she's dealing with her own stuff. Um or she's also having to deal with her friends stuff, and so it makes things complicated. Um she starts going down a downward spiral herself. Everybody's talking about college and what's next, and she doesn't even know if she's going to graduate. So it's a lot on her plate. Um the next one is Slugfest by Gordon Corman. Um, Gordon Corman is a well known name in the children's literature. This is his newest release that follows a main character who somehow did something wrong and didn't get his PE credits. And it's interesting because the main character is an athlete, but he did something, he didn't get his PE credit, so now he has to go to summer school to get his PE credit, which I've never heard of before. Basically, go to summer school to get his PE credit, and PE over the summer is known as Slugfest. And so he ends up meeting people that also have to be a part of the Slugfest, and they create a unforgettable summer, which it feels very much so like a coming of age story. Um, the next one is Northwoods, um, which follows the main character whose life also is falling apart. He works in the sheriff's office, but the only reason why I believe he has that job is because his mother is the sheriff. But then things get kind of pick up speed when the body of a teenage boy is found, and I believe that this is closely related to the opioid epidemic that exists here in the States. All right. Listen, let me tell you, the only picture that existed of this first book, Sanctuary, of the Shadow, is that because you want to make sure they show you that they have the sprayed edges. I'm so sick. Of shit. I'm so sick of these fucking sprayed edges. There's another book on this list that's just like this. I'm pretty sure this is a romantasy. This follows a main character who has a magical ability. She's not supposed to tell anybody. And she finds Destiny in this is a being called an elemental, who does not know who he is. And she, in order to help him, she's revealing secrets of her own, her powers in order to, to save him. So I'm sure that'll be on Goodreads romantasy list. No, I'm just playing because there's going to be so many different titles that release that are going to be romantasy in between, what was November of this year until November of next year. But I just thought I would include that. Then we have Red String Theory. This is an adult romance book. And this is following a main character who believes in the Chinese legend that everyone is tied to their one true love by a red string of fate. Um, and she ends up meeting this guy that she deems as Mr. Right, but she is trying to convince him of his fate. So he's reluctant. I've heard, I think, is this the same author of Lunar Love or something along those lines? Something along that title. This is the same author. And the last one that we have is called the fetishist. Lord, these these titles are whooping my ass. Now this is an interesting one. This follows a main character who decides to get revenge on a man that basically strung her mom along, dropped her, and which eventually led to her death. And so, because she's grieving and she's pissed, she actively goes out, and and goes looking for this man to kill him. And then things do not go the way that she plans. So she's pissed. And so it's a revenge killing type of situation. Very see, with that cover, I I'm not gonna lie to you. With that cover, because I unfortunately have fallen into the trap of like, oh, a beautiful cover makes me more interested because, I'm human and ridiculous. But reading the description of that one, I hate that cover. I absolutely despise that cover. But that premise sounds interesting that she's so blinded by rage that she would seek out to kill this man, not knowing the events that she would set into place by doing so. I do not like that cover though. All right. The next one that we have is Fighting with Love. This is a children's biography about John Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. Should be. Then we have the Atlas of Us, which is a YA contemporary slash romance. This follows a main character who is set to get her life together, and so she does a community service program, which is rehabbing the trails in the Western Sierras. What I thought was interesting is that in this program, no one is allowed to use their real name, and so they all use these code names. And she's dealing with a lot. Her dad had passed, and so this is one of his favorite places. And she works with this group. They head into the wilderness, and she has to reckon with everything that she's dealing with. From reading the summary of this one, right, um, these people that she goes with are going to help her kind of deal with the grief and anger and pain that she's feeling. And the last one that I have on this one is River East, River West. This is an adult fiction book that is set against the backdrop of developing modern China. It's coming of age. It is a main character that I think wants to be closer, which is it's kind of like a reverse. I don't how they described it when I read the summary and looked at some of the reviews of this one is kind of like it's a different take on the immigration story because we're following a main character who wants to go back to China. She's not from China. She wants to go back to China to learn more about her roots and her heritage. And her mother ends up meeting this or marrying, or at least dating or marrying the landlord who has immigrated from China to the US. And so I think that this book is going to be exploring both of their storylines simultaneously because there was a section of the summary that kind of talked about his experience in China previous to the current timeline with um, this other main character that has this urge and this passion to be closer to her Chinese background. Y'all seem like y'all are having fun in these comments, and I'm mad that I do not have the chance to scroll through them the way I want to. All right, we have You Dreamed of Empires. This takes place in 1519, which would be the place is what would be modern day Mexico City, and this follows Cortez as he um, enters Mexico City, and it looks at the clashing of two worlds, two empires, two languages, and what would happen. I forget who he said he was inspired by, but in terms of writing this, but this one has gotten some really really great reviews, and I'm looking forward to this one, even so much as the just the historical background of that one. Then we have Love La La. This is about a main character that's celebrating Carnival with her father in Trinidad and Tobago. So happy to see a lot more Caribbean picture books been coming out in the past few years. And the last one on this one is Do You Know Them? This is a children's nonfiction book. That horse does look really weird. And once again, the cover. This is a horrible cover. Like, but I'm telling you, the description of this one, it's really, really good. Um, but this last one, Do You Know Them? This is a nonfiction book about the newspaper ads that Black people would put out to look for their family members after the Civil War, after enslavement and emancipation. And it follows Letty, who saved all of her money up so that she can bring each one of her family members together. I know that that one's gonna be a difficult read, but it's just a necessary read, at least for me personally, as a reminder of, like, the destruction of the nuclear family, of the Black nuclear family that occurred because of slavery, Civil War, and emancipation after that, and what happened to families as a result, so yes, um all right. Then we have The War of Witches. Do this really quick. This is just the fifth book in the Dragons in a Bag series, which is a middle grade fantasy series by Zeta Elliott. If you've never read Dragons in a Bag, you're horribly missing out. This is another fantasy series that's a little bit on the younger end. They're not very long, but they're really, really good. So if you have someone that's looking for, once again, more on the younger side of fantasy books, especially those that feature Black characters, I would highly recommend the Dragons in the Bag series. Then we have Invisible Woman. And this is a main character who, y'all, it's a main character who is a filmmaker who moves to Brooklyn with her husband. This is an adult thriller. Um, Something happens where a scandal is brought to light, and this has to do there I believe that there is some possible sexual assault that is wrapped into this one, where she was made to she was supposed to keep quiet, um and it was because the friend that had experienced a sexual assault at the hands of someone in Hollywood asked her not to say anything, but then it comes to light um eventually, And in order to kind of remove herself from the situation, she becomes obsessed with these novels by an author by the name of Patricia Highsmith. And she becomes so obsessed and so engrossed in the novels that she has issues distinguishing between what is fiction and what is reality. It becomes completely blurred. And it's an issue because these characters have um, these murderous impulses, and she becomes obsessed with their impulses, and so she begins to have a hard time deciphering fantasy from real. Which I think she's gonna kill the man. I'm sorry, I just do. I think she's gonna kill the man. Um, let's see here. I left out. I knew when I was doing my count, I was like, "There's something I left out." No, I didn't. I almost skipped, but mislaid in parts half known. Most of y'all probably already know this. This is the next part of the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire. That doesn't really need much shine for me. I think I've only read like the first two of those books. The next one is One of the Good Guys. So this one, first of all, the cover. I was like, "What? Like, what is this?" So there's these two humans who've been having issues in their life, relationship, marriage, whatever. And they end up going to the same place, and they end up building this relationship, right? They're getting to quote unquote get to know each other, um, because they're both struggling. Well, while they're having this escape in this seaside town, two women vanish, and it ends up in a situation where nobody is who they seem to be. And so these two characters think, "Oh yeah, we really know each other. We're getting to know each other." And then as the case starts to kind of unwind, they realize that they really know absolutely nothing about each other. So now it's a question of, I wonder who killed the two girls. It's got to be her or him, one of the two. And then the next one is a children's biography. This is about Virginia Hamilton. Never heard of Virginia Hamilton. Please go look her up. She was the first Black person to win the Newbery Medal, and now she has her own award that falls within the Coretta Scott King Award. So there's the Coretta Scott King Award, but then there's two subsections of it. This is a John Steptoe New Talent, which is another amazing Black creator. If you've never heard of them, John Steptoe's work is amazing. And then there's a Virginia Hamilton Lifetime Achievement Award, and so this is her story, which is, I'm so happy to see that there's a picture book coming out about her. Yes, the Virginia Hamilton. When I tell you, when I saw this, I was like, my girl is getting her flowers as she should. And then we have a middle grade graphic novel called Bertle. And this is the title of this one is Bertle and the Purple Turtles. One of the turtles' names is Tootie. I can't take it seriously. But one of the main characters' names is Tootie, and Tootie likes playing tag, but the other turtles don't. And then Tootie meets Teeny, and Teeny is a bird, and Teeny loves tag. Um, and so they have a lot in common, except, of course, Teeny is not a turtle. So it's cute. Like that's cute. Teeny and Tootle. Or Tootie. Tootie and Teeny. Goodness gracious. Yeah, but that is Bertle and the Purple Turtles. That's cute. Come on, Tootie. I can't. Okay. Um Tootie the Tag Turtle. Y'all gonna run out with that now. All right, next we have Remember My Story. This is a middle grade nonfiction book about a young girl who forms a relationship with a Holocaust survivor, which I did not know about this story. And they did some work in changing their community to make sure that the history related to the Holocaust was maintained in curriculums. And I think, of course, this is such an important story now because you have school districts that are now trying to get any teachings of the Holocaust removed from their school curriculums. And so it's a very timely release of that particular title. We have Homegrown, which is a another picture book. Um, while a mom is finishing up the hair of her daughter, she asked the question, "What does it mean to be homegrown?" And so her mom and her grandmother kind of explain that home is not just a physical place. There's more to the meaning of the word home than what you may often think. Um, the next one that we have in his adult nonfiction is called The Furies. This is um, a nonfiction book done by an investigative journalist. Um, as she looks at three different situations where women have taken or have committed or are committing acts of violence in response to acts of violence that have been committed against them. And it's three particular stories. I apologize because I can't remember one. I know one was following someone who committed a murder. I can't remember for what reason it was. I know one story follows specifically a group of women that were, is it ISIS or someone else that they were battling against? I apologize because I can't remember the particulars off the top of my head. But it basically is about women who use violence to push back against the systems that were designed um, against them. So I'm very, very interested in that and very, very smart, to call it the Furies. I like that. Nice play. Um, all right, next one we have is a picture book, Take Me to Lau Lau. This is a picture book that is about a young girl who finds out that her grandmother cannot make it to the Spring Lantern Festival. And so she's taking on a Chinese mythology inspired adventure to help her grandmother, um, you know, get to the festival. This is actually really, really sad. Um, and I don't want to say why because I will spoil it. So just keep that in mind. That one is sad. I think so. I think it's going to be sad if I'm thinking about this one correctly, but moving on. The next one is When You Have to Wait. This is just a picture book about mindfulness and patience, which my daughter and I will be reading this one together. You best believe that. And then the last one we have is a why um not furries. The next one we have is a YA fantasy. Um, this author did a book either last year or this year. And this is about a main character who has to erase her debts. And in order to do that, she has to conduct a rescue mission beneath an island, trapped in the darkness, with her childhood enemy and people who would kill her if they had the chance. The cover to me was appealing, okay? When I read that description, I think I struggle with this one a little bit because the fact that she has to go on a dangerous mission underwater in darkness with people who would kill her, it made me feel so claustrophobic. Reading that, I was like, oh, I feel claustrophobic reading that. But the cover is absolutely gorgeous. The cover is gorgeous. All right, we have made it to the week of January 16th. We're only at an hour and a half. I'm surprised. I am surprised. All right, week of January 16th. We're going to keep pushing through. We have The Fury, which I think people are anticipating this one most definitely. This follows a ex movie star. She's famous. She has this exclusive private Greek island. And so she invites these people to spend Easter with her. And all of her guests want revenge. They're hateful. And and of course that is like the perfect situation. Nobody likes each other. People want revenge, and you're trapping them on an island, a private island, So of course we all know what ends up happening. Revenge, murder, disaster, etc. Um, the next one we have is Only If You're Lucky. This is this has potential for me to be an interesting one. It follows a main character that is kind of shy. She keeps herself kind of insular, but she ends up meeting another character. And this character convinces her to move off campus with three women. So it's four of them in total, right? And things seem to be going well. Um until one of the fraternity boys next door is murdered, and then one of the girls in the group has gone missing. So there's that. One of the four of them did it. Who did it? That author is known for being disappointing. Yeah. Um, I don't know. It had a release date. Let me see. Let me check now. We can double check. I'll check in real time. No, it may have just gotten a lot of it's been getting a lot of traction because, that's the same author, The Maidens, The Silent Patient. I think that this author is kind of hit or miss for a lot of people. But that title is not slated to come out until January 16th. All right, and the last one that we have on this list is Where You End. Now, this one was one that I was like, yes, yes, yes. So this follows a set of twins. And one of the twins wakes up and has no recollection of anything except they know that when they're like when they wake up in the hospital, right? They know that that is their twin, and they know that their twin's name, but they have no idea of anything about their life. And so their twin helps them build back their memory of their life piece by piece. But slowly they come to realize that their twin is lying and hiding something because their real memories start to come back. And so now it's a question of, well, what is one twin hiding from the other? And what happened that said twin ended up in a coma and has no memory? Yes. So that's it. Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, like it does not have a I feel like I had a copy of that. I'm pretty sure I have a copy of The Fury. But it says it does not release until January 16th. They could have been doing a heavy push for ARC releases and people talking about it already. But it is not supposed to come out until January 16th. But I think a lot of people are not gonna like it. Oh, it has rabbits on the cover. Someone tell Kayla about it. It's so real because it has some bunnies on the cover. All right, let's go to the next one. All right. Of course, we have Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series. Um, and then I got a Me Too. Me Too. Okay. I was about to say I got an arc of it too, and I've never read any of his works. Unsolicited, mind you. Um, Then we have another beginner reader, which is Ready Set Puppies. It's just about kids who like playing with puppies. If you have an animal lover in your house that's an emerging reader, that would be a good beginner reader for them. And then we have another adult thriller. You see what I'm saying, y'all? It literally January is nothing but adult thrillers. We do have The Night of the Storm. Um, this is a main character who is hunkering down. It's a hurricane. I can't remember which hurricane it is when it takes place. But it's a hurricane. And so the main character is hunkering down with her sister and her brother-in-law's family. Um, and essentially, while they're in the household during this hurricane, tensions rise. But the main character is a single mom with a 12-year-old. But things get tense, and then somebody gets murdered. So that means somebody in the family murdered a family member, and I want to know why. Because that's messy. That's messy. That is messy. That's super messy. All right, next. Another another adult thriller. Now, this one I thought was interesting. This is a main character who has motion blindness. So she can't see movement at all. But she has an acute sense of smell and hearing. Um, and she's convinced that she has a neighbor who's trying to escape an abusive husband and is thinks also that it has escalated to the point that her neighbor is going to get murdered. But when I read part of this, I thought this was interesting because while she lays out this plan to to handle the situation, there's somebody that's coming into her place. She can't see them, but it's kind of like she can sense the shadow in her house, and then her acute smell picks up. But she can smell the person and she recognizes that smell elsewhere. So I don't know. I've never I was like, goodness gracious, I wonder, how that would end up going. But that is The Silence in Her Eyes. It's an adult thriller. Next we have a YA horror, A Place for Vanishing, which follows a main character who moves into her mother's old childhood home. She has bipolar 3, and discovers that this house has a more haunted past than what she anticipated. I realized that I like haunted houses, like as a theme in horror. But I also like, because I keep thinking about these delicious monsters where it's a haunted house, but it's also the haunted horrors of the people that were in that house. And I wonder if thematically this one would kind of follow that same thing. Um, and then the last one we have is a picture book, which is a STEM picture book about gravity, which I think is kind of cute. Gravity is bringing me is bringing me down. And it's kind of like it's STEM, but at the same time, it also has to do with like moods and emotions and like being kind of like in a sour mood, not feeling really great. And so that I like that comparison. Gravity is bringing me down. Okay. Next we have The Parliament. I didn't know whether this should be adult fiction or something else because I was like, I don't know what this could possibly be. So there are tens of thousands of birds that flock to the main character's hometown library, right? And they attack anyone who is foolish enough to step out of the library. I don't know what that would be genre-wise. If y'all wanna guess, please be my like, please tell me, what would you categorize that at? Because they get trapped in this library because the birds won't let them out, and of course, naturally, you're trapped in this library, eventually your resources are gonna dwindle down, and so they have to band together to figure out, um, how to, get out of there, and she seeks guidance from her favorite childhood book called, The Silent Queen. I have no idea. I just thought the fact of all these birds descending upon this library and they're not allowed to get out. The birds will attack you if you try to leave. And then she figures out the solution, or she's trying to find a solution to their dilemma through her childhood book. Like, what genre would that be? I have no idea. Like, I have no idea. Not for me at all. Birds. I don't know. That's interesting. Next we have Shark Teeth. This one I think has potential to be really, really difficult. This is about a main character by the name of Kita who is trying to help her family stick together because her mom is a struggling alcoholic. And her mom keeps promising her that she's going to get it together, but Kita's just kind of like she's waiting for the nail eh, to drop, the last nail in the coffin, because in the description it was coming some insinuation that protective services have stepped in and have taken the family apart to keep the kids safe, and so she's really hoping that her mom will keep it together for once, to make sure that the family can stay together. And I think that when she gets more involved with like after school activities, like some other adults begin to notice that there's something weird going on with her home life. So that one is probably going to be a difficult one. Oh, they have it as horror and sci-fi fantasy. Okay, okay, okay. It says Princess Bride meets the birds. Interesting. Okay. We have Maud Horton's Glorious Revenge. This is a adult mystery, but I would say this is more like a historical mystery. This is a main character who is trying to figure out what happened to her sister, because her sister went on a voyage, and there is a ship that she went on, and there was a scientist on board, and her sister ends up getting or going missing. And so Maud, who's the main character, feels like the scientist is responsible and somebody's not really saying what exactly happened to her sister. Um, this Wretched Valley is an adult horror. This one sounds really sick. So this is about a main character by the name of Dylan who is supposed to like climb this specific mountain, and she's has some other people tag teaming along to record this feat, because she's up and coming in the rock climbing world. Um, but she goes missing, and then three bodies are discovered in various states of decay. So it was three other people that went with her. She goes missing. Three other bodies are found of the people that attended with her. When I read a description, I think one was already down to like white ashen bone. One had all of the organs removed, and one had like fingers and some other extremities had been removed from the body. So I was like, okay, so this is gonna be some body gore. I don't know if this is my thing or not, but the premise sounded really, really interested. It sounds really, really interested. Um, Next we have a picture book, Forever and Always, which is just a picture book about the everyday life of a young Black child and her family. Then the last one we have on here is So Let Them Burn. This is one of the authors, I believe, that was impacted by Kate Coran. And this is a YA fantasy about, um, I think this is a Jamaican inspired fantasy. I feel like it is. I feel like I read that, but I could be wrong. This is about a main character who um, once wielded magic, who and was able to save her island, but that was long before. I think she's like 17 or 18 by the time this book takes place, and that was long before the time of this book. And so now she has all this power built up, and she can't use it, and so she gets on everybody's nerves at this point until her sister forms an unbreakable bond with an enemy dragon, and then everything goes left. Um, that cover is absolutely gorgeous. And I'm the last Jamaican inspired fantasy I read let me down, and it was YA, and everybody DNF'd it, and I can't remember what the name of this daggone book was, y'all. Steeped in gold. Like everybody hated that book, and I was like, I'm so disappointed that this was a Jamaican inspired fantasy and it was no good. The second book was like 800 pages, and I'm like, nah. So this is another Jamaican inspired fantasy, and so I have high hopes for this one. All right. Next we have a short, I say adult fiction, but I believe that this is a short story collection as well. And it is Behind You and Is the Sea. And this is a short story collection um that gives voice to diverse residents of the Palestinian American community. So there are um, young activists um, that are represented in this, and it shows lives which intersect across divides of class, generation, and religion. I feel like this is a short story collection. I'm gonna double check because I didn't make a notation of whether it is or not, or whether this is a fiction book. It's a fiction book. My God, y'all. I don't know why. It's a fiction book that shows the perspectives of young activists. I think maybe I don't know. No, it's a short story collection. Goodness gracious. It is a short story collection. Y'all are like, probably like, Ashley, what do you got? It is a short story collection. Because I was like, what in the world? Yes, that is one of the authors that she wants Star Bomb. But sorry, y'all. Sorry for the confusion. That is a short story collection that focuses on different families, um, Palestinian immigrants in America, that faces the stereotypes about Palestinian culture. Um, and it's relatively short. I don't know why I thought it was longer than that. Okay. Next one we have Midnight Ruin, which is the next book in the Dark Olympus series. I've only read 2 of the books so far. I believe this is book 6 or 7 in the series. I know Katie Robert is so up and down for me. I know a couple of y'all have read Katie Robert and you're not huge fans of hers, but this is a retelling of Eurydice, Orpheus, and Charon. Um, so this is a three thing going on here. We all know that the steamy scenes will be hot, but the plot probably will not. Um, I'm sorry. Last one on this one is Our Hidden Conversations. This is a adult non-fiction book that talks about race, ethnicity, and class. Um, it includes short stories, essays, and photographs. That is the work of the Race Card Project. So all that stuff is accumulated into one book. All right, next we have this is the Rick Riordan book that is coming out in January. Rick Riordan Presents book that's coming out in January. I apologize. This is A Drop of Venom. This is a feminist retelling of the Medusa myth that is steeped in Indian mythology. That cover, every time I see that cover, I'm like, who? And I need to find out who designed that cover because that cover is giving everything. From the moment I saw this cover, I said, man, whoever did that is in their bag because that is gorgeous. Um, it just, I mean, literally a drop. They could not have captured the fact that this is a Medusa retelling steeped in Indian mythology, like, and the green with the snake, like it's just in the green eyes, like, oh, they outdid themselves with that cover. Um, Next we have the MAGA Diaries. You know, I'm finna eat this up. Y'all know I'm finna eat this book up. So this is a political journalist who at one point I did not know had worked for Tucker Carlson. It talks a little bit about the conservative movement and how they do their recruitment, and what methods they use to entice younger individuals into becoming a part of their political party and what happens after the fact. And so um, this journalist was once a part of the conservative movement, and it eventually ended up leaving. And I believe that she was a part of the conservative movement prior to Trump's bid for presidency. And so she's seen it for an extensive period of time. And the last one we have here is a picture book. This is Baker Makers. This is a young boy who strives to be like the best baker um, of cakes, but struggles with perfectionism. This is the one that me and my little one are going to have to read. We are entering the phase of childhood where there is like, I don't want to say like comparisons, but we're in that phase of I can't do this or I can't do it. Like if like I see someone else doing that and I can't do that. I can't sing like that. I can't. And so we're having these conversations about like doing what you can do is good enough. You're not going to be perfect at everything. There's going to be things that you can do that others can't do, and there's going to be things that others can do that you can't do. And like being you is good enough, and giving your best effort and trying and having fun. So we literally have been having those conversations for like the past couple of days. And so this is one that I promise you we will be reading at our nightly story time because it's enough. It's a thing that needs to happen. This one sounded really interesting to me. Y'all please double check me behind this one too. I didn't know. I think this has like a fantasy feel to it, but it almost feels like it could be like literary fantasy with like with a romantic subplot from the description. So this is a this is about time. Time is the main character, and it is Time's job to usher in the new seasons. And so in this book, Time is responsible for ushering autumn into the human world. And it happens successfully, but the portal in which Time is able to leave and autumn is supposed to exit to usher in winter gets shattered. And so while they're trying to while her group is trying to fix it on the back end, they're kind of stuck. And so autumn remains for an extended period of time. And so it affects humans because crops start to fail. It's affecting Time because she starts to get like migraines and stuff like that. Like she's getting sick. And then Autumn starts to become more human like. And what ends up happening is he's finding himself build this attraction for Time. So I would it feels fantasy, but it doesn't feel like it's like a hardcore fantasy. Um it feels very like it could be like a literary fantasy, but it sounds very, very interesting. Like this idea of Time and Autumn are not supposed to have this relationship, mind you. It's a forbidden romance. But because they're spending so much time in the human world, it's kind of on his end, it's becoming very much so inevitable. Um, Next, we have a children's nonfiction, which is Everywhere Beauty is Harlem. I'm loving these books that are like giving odes to historically Black communities. We saw one earlier that was like a love letter to the Bronx. This one is a love letter to Harlem, and it's photography. Which, if you know anything about children's books, it's so important to have like actual photographs instead of illustrations. Illustrations are great, but kids also need to see photographs of people, like real people in the world. And so it's always nice to see like things like that. Yeah. Yup. And then the last one we have is Most Ardently. This is another book in the classics, the Remix Classics series. This is the Pride and Prejudice retelling, which is one that I'm really, really excited for. This takes place in 1812 London, and the main character is a trans boy who meets and falls in love with Darcy. I'm excited for that one. I haven't been like super hyped about any of the remix. I've read one of them. I haven't been super hyped about any one of them in particular, but that one, because I do like Pride and Prejudice, I'm looking forward to that. And speaking of like another retelling, L.L. McKinney, which for me could be hit or miss. I do not like um L.L. McKinney's retelling of Alice in Wonderland. I was not a huge fan of it. It was a mediocre read for me. I gave it like 3 stars. But L.L. McKinney is coming out with Escaping Mr. Rochester, which is a queer retelling of Jane Eyre. I'm very much so looking. The cover design on this one is very, very well done. And the idea that um we're dealing with a version of Jane Eyre who does not want to be married at all, um, and discovers that Rochester, of course, has locked his wife away. And Jane Eyre, I think it's going to be a romance between Jane Eyre and this wife. So I'm looking forward to that one. Um, yeah, I was not a fan of the Alice in Wonderland trilogy, but I'm looking forward to that one very much so. Um, Next we have a picture book. I was about to say Escaping Mr. Rochester. Again, that's not a picture book. This is Ellie Mae Dreams Big. Um, and this is just, you could be anything that you want to be type of picture books. That's exactly what it is, down to a score. And the last one that we have here is a children's nonfiction book, which is called The Tree of Life, which is a book, of course, that takes place during World War II in the Terezin concentration camp, where a group of children and their teacher plant a tree. And that tree is still living to this day, 80 years later, and has 600 descendants that are thriving around the world. A little bit of history that I did not know, which is why I often like children's nonfiction because they capture tidbits of history that are not often taught in the classroom, whether we don't have the capacity, whether there's, barriers to teaching this information. But I had no idea that this was a thing that actually happened where this tree was planted and then it now has 600 family members all across the globe. I think that's beautiful. All right. We then have American Wings. This is an adult nonfiction that follows Black Americans who created a flying club um, as the US entered World War II. I think this is going to definitely look at the complicated nature, the bigoted nature, the racist nature of the amount of Black Americans that were asked um, to support the US in its war efforts when they couldn't even serve um, in the military in the same way and were discriminated against and, not being able to fly planes the same way as their white counterparts. And so, um, very interested in that one. I knew Aaron was coming through because nonfiction queen. Um, Next, we have Beast of War, which is the third book in the Beast of Prey series. I don't know if this is the final one, but that is a beautiful cover. Um, Ray, add me to your list. I know that I've been a horrible buddy reader. I've done better with Robin. Robin and I read 4 books together this year. Ray, at some point, I will get to the Gilded Ones and the Merciless Ones. I promise you I will. But I do need to get to Beast of Prey this year as well. And the last one that we have is Grandma's Roof Garden, which is a picture book, which is the grandmother who's teaching the neighborhood children how to care for vegetables um, in the way that she does, which I think is cool. And the last one we have for this week is Say You'll Be Mine. This is a adult romance which follows a main character who I had a best friend who she had a crush on, ends up getting married. And so she allows her parents to introduce her to a potential match. And this potential match is an engineer. They agree to fake date or fake engagement. It's a fake engagement, I believe, to help her through dealing with her best friend's wedding. But of course, things happen with them. So yes, there's that. It's not, Robin picked one of the most anticipated. I needed to finish that series, and yes, Robin carried me through finishing the Diviners. Finally, I'm sorry. We'll get it together. I will get it together. Okay, January 23rd. We're almost done. We're at 113. This is book 113 coming up. Um, Into the Sunken City, another beautiful cover. This is a YA fantasy series. This is another one that makes me feel a little claustrophobic, a little bit. This is a world, this is a version of our world where rain never stops. I would be miserable. Rain never stops, and the main character is impoverished, and she decides to embark on this journey where there's supposedly a massive stash of gold hidden underneath the ruins of Las Vegas. Um, and she has to dive to do this. I feel like this book is going to give me heart palpitations to be underwater like that. Um, oh God, it just makes me so. But I am excited to read that one, and that's a beautiful cover. Um, Next, we have Exordia, which is this is an adult sci-fi. I just thought this was interesting because it's about an office worker um, that basically has a close encounter, joins with a group of civilians to investigate a mysterious otherworldly broadcast, aliens. And it's amazing because in this country, people are like, oh, with the government, not us, because the government's like, oh, what would happen if we told y'all aliens exist? Shoot, beam me up, Scotty, because I can't stay here no. I told somebody the other day, the aliens can come and snatch my black ass up because it will be better than anything that is on this planet at this point. So that one, the cover of that one looks very interesting. Um, and the last one that's on here is Womb City. This cover, this is adult cyberpunk, is what I've seen it categorized as. And this is a main character. She has a drug infueled evening. She took some drugs. But the premise of this one before that, I believe her husband can control her. Like she has what would be like a picture perfect life, but her husband can control her through a chip that she has in her body. I listen, I don't know. Um, but she enters this drug fueled night situation, and she ends up committing a desperate crime. Um, but the ghost of her victim vows to hunt down the people she loves. And then it involves like a political conspiracy. It just seems like, it feels like it'd be a fast paced, high energy kind of interesting book. So I'm excited for that. That cover is just, I can't remember if her husband is a cop or not, Jennifer. To be honest with you. Do you know, you try to speculate so many things off of the little descriptions that you get. The next one is Black Women Taught Us. And I don't think I need to say anything else because y'all know I'm finna. Aaron, where you at? Aaron? Aaron, where are you at? Black Women Taught Us. This is an adult nonfiction book. It's 11 essays from people like Harriet Jacobs, Ida B. Wells, Archie Lord, and it showcases the legacy of Black women writers and leaders. And it repositions their intellectual work and political work at the center of today's liberation movements, as they should, as they should. Because let me tell you, um, yes, yes. Next one is The Bullet Swallower. This book takes place in 1960. Well, part of it took place in 1964, where Mexico's most renowned actor and singer discovers a book telling of the multiple horrific crimes committed by his ancestors, and he has to pay for those crimes. Y'all, I could never. Like, I would, I could never. The only way that he can stop this is if he uncovers the truth about his grandfather. I could never, ever, ever, ever. That would, man, to pay for the crimes of your ancestors like that, to find out that way. All right, the next one that we have on this is a picture book, and this is Eyes That Weave the World's Wonders. This is the same author that did Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. And it's about a transracial adoptee that learns about her birth culture and her adopted family's culture. Next we have No One Can Know. This is another adult thriller where the main character, who is pregnant, mind you, returned to the house where her parents were killed. She hasn't ever told anybody what she saw the night that her parents were murdered at all. Um, she didn't tell anybody that she was a prime suspect at one point. Um, but through this, she's reunited with her sisters, and they're trying to keep things in the past. One of the three of them, or if there's more than three, somebody killed the parents. One of them killed the parents. I am convinced one of them killed the parents. Um, Next we have Legacy. This is an adult nonfiction that is partly an indictment on our healthcare system, um, and the bias and racism that exists in the medical field. You know I'm finna read that. You know, because I have experience. Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna tell my L&D story tonight, but I always, whenever we bring up the medical field and its relationship to the Black community, I always bring up my labor and delivery story because, honey, To know about something, but then to experience it are two very different things. Um, the last one I have here is The Colliding Worlds of Mina Lee. This is Ellen O, who typically does a lot of middle grade, part of the We Need Diverse Books movement. This is a young adult contemporary book about a young main character who um, wakes up as a character in her own story. Like literally wakes up and she's in her story, the story that she created. Which I mean, that's a very interesting concept. Um, very very interesting concept. All right, this one I think is going to be really really sad. It's called Between Two Brothers. Um, it follows a main character by the name of Isaiah, and him and his brother have a falling out because his brother's supposed to be going away to school, and then his brother I think ends up going away to school um earlier than what he was supposed to. Then he was supposed to show up to an event that Isaiah had, and he doesn't show until they get into an argument, and it ends up being pretty bad. And then Isaiah's like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, I'll just apologize to him in the morning. It's not a big deal." His brother ends up getting into an accident, and they don't know if he's ever going to pull through from the accident, if he'll ever recover from it. And so, emotions, emotions emotions. I don't know what's going on with middle grade right now, but lots and lots and lots of emotions, okay? Lots of emotions. I hope that this doesn't end up being sad, but with middle grade, you never know. Um, Madness is an adult nonfiction. This is a book that traces a legacy of slavery to the treatment of Black people's bodies and minds in our current healthcare system. So, kind of like another one that addresses um, the relationship between the Black community and the healthcare system. This specifically tells a story of the 93-year-old um, uh, uh, Crownsville Hospital, which is one of I think it's one of the last segregated asylums. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the last segregated asylums. The way that they did this was just like they had a group of Black men lay the foundation for this asylum brick by brick, and then force them to be in the asylum. I just, that's going to be a tough one, but it is one that I do want to pick up. Last on this list, we have Rack Pack. This is a middle grade graphic novel. Um, it is about a trio of raccoons that are in the dumpster business. It just the fact that it's RACC pack and they're in the dumpster business is just All right. The next one that we have, which I'm pretty sure is a romantasy, is Gothicana. I've been seeing this all around a lot. Once again, book turned to the side to let us know that it's going to have spread edges. Like, I'm so sick of spread edges. This is about a main character who receives an admission letter to this mysterious university in a secluded castle. Girl, why would you go? I don't know why, because I feel like this. If I was to read this book, I feel like it would piss me off. But I want to try. Want to try. But she attends this reclusive university, and she ends up getting tangled up in a century-old mystery with a professor that's there. Listen, like, I don't know. Um, Next we have Feybound, which I think a lot of people are excited about. This is the same author of The Final Strife. This is the first in a new trilogy, I believe. And this one is about a main character that ends up having to deal with a Fey court, in the most simplistic terms. And so I love to see, Fey courts outside of, our typical, you know, y'all know what I'm finna go. You know what direction I'm finna go when I say Fey court. And I'm just gonna leave it alone because I ain't got time tonight to do it. But I am excited. I still need to read The Final Strife, but that one did pique my interest. Um, Next one is A Meal in the After. This is I think this is captures the Great Partition, but this is also it's not a sequel, but it's a companion to the Night Diary. I would recommend, just for reasons, reading the Night Diary before you pick up this one. It's not a series, they're companions, but I would recommend reading the Night Diary. This one takes place in 1948. It follows a 12-year-old who is both Muslim and Hindu, and struggles to find her place in Bombay, India, um, until his twin sister suggests that he tell his story through drawings. So read, if you can, read the Night Diary before you read A Meal in the After. I'm reading the fashion next year. I guess we have options for successful. We will have a successful buddy read. Okay, we will. Yes, I think you'll like, if you like the Night Diary, Kathleen. I think you will enjoy A Meal in the After, since they are companions. The next one is What to Who to Believe, not what, Who to Believe. This is another adult thriller, um, where a restaurateur, these words are kicking my ass. So basically, this character by the name of Laurel is found brutally murdered in her own home, right? Her husband is the prime suspect. Everybody thinks her husband did it. But then six of her friends gather together to kind of come up with their own theories of like what could have happened. And then they all realize that they all have had the motivation, or they've all had reasons um to kill her. And so while we think that her husband is the suspect, um, they all have had reasons to kill her at some point. And so it's probably one of the six friends. Um, I'm gonna reread it, Kathleen, before I read that, because I don't remember much from the Night Diary. So I'm gonna reread the Night Diary before I read that one. The next one we have is not, well, first of all, I forgot one. I knew I was gonna forget one. So there's a picture book called Natural Me that's coming out. That is an ode to young girls on their journey of self-empowerment. So just keep that one in mind. It's a picture book if you're interested in that. I just don't have the cover up here. The next one that I have is Not Dead Enough. Now, on first glance, it may seem like that is a thriller or a mystery, but that is actually a YA contemporary that is about a main character whose boyfriend ends up dying in an accident. Um, and she wants to be able to, you know, have things go back to normal. She's working through her PTSD. Um, but there's something going wrong with that situation. So she hasn't been 100% clear as to what really happened that night. She doesn't want to tell the truth about what happened, but somebody starts sending her messages um that appears to be from her boyfriend. And they're threatening and they're saying things that only her boyfriend could have said. And so she in some ways feels as though it is um her boyfriend, because he said that he would always come back for her, and not in a positive way. I think this one's probably going to have content warnings for um domestic violence. So just be mindful of that. Um the last one that we have on this list is Maybe It's a Sign. This is a middle grade um contemporary book by El Shen, who I am familiar with. I do like her work. Um this one is sad though, because it follows a main character who is superstitious. She's obsessed with Chinese superstition, and she believes in signs, and she thinks that they're from her late father. Um, but as she builds a new friendship, she starts to realize that she kind of has to rely on her own luck, and she has to go on this process of self discovery. So this one probably is going to tackle grief in a lot of different ways, especially because of just the nature of her looking to these signs, as communication from her departed father. Um, all right. We have Barracoon. So this is a young reader's version of Barracoon that they have adapted for a middle grade audience. Of course, this is Zora Neale Hurston, um, and so it's not the same exact thing as Barracoon as adults, but they're formatted in a way that it would be accessible for younger readers. Then we have Too Much, which is a picture book about a main character who's struggling with being heard or having a voice and being seen in his large native family. The last one that we have on this one is Twilight Territory. I kind of view this one as like adult historical fiction. This takes place in 1942 in a Vietnamese fishing village. This also deals a little bit with Japanese occupation, Japanese relationship with Vietnam. Our main character ends up falling in love with a Japanese major. And it's complicated because she feels like she shouldn't, but she feels like he has a good heart. He ends up risking his life for the resistance. And because of that, her family is drawn into that conflict and it has consequences for them all. Next, we have Out of Our League. This is just a YA contemporary short story collection um, of stories, trials and triumphs of girls in sports. Then we have a middle grade kind of like paranormal book, which is Emma and the Love Spell. This is about a main character by the name of Emma who has powers because she's a witch, which she keeps secret. Her best friend, who is also her secret crush. So, best friend, she has a crush on her best friend Evangeline, and Evangeline is moving away because her parents are getting a divorce, and so Emma decides that she wants to use her powers to keep Evangeline's parents from getting divorced, and of course, that's going to backfire horribly. It does not work out the way that she anticipates. And the last one that we have on here is a YA contemporary slash romance. It's called My Fair Brady, which of course is a play on My Fair Lady, which is about a main character by the name of Elijah, who's shy, he's quiet, used to being overlooked. And he decides to join the stage crew for the school musical. But then he he well, his ex-boyfriend, Wade, um, is also a part of this whole situation. Wade is very much so, self-absorbed, thinks about, you know, himself all the time, not really considerate of everybody else, but Elijah and Wade end up making a deal that if Elijah teaches him how to be popular, then Wade can prove that he cares about people other than himself. Um Basically, Wade, I'm sorry, I described that completely wrong. Wade and Elijah were not together. Wade and Reese were together. This is why multiple characters here. Wade and Reese were together. And so Elijah makes a deal with him. They broke up because Wade was so self-centered. But Elijah makes a deal with Wade to help him become popular. That way he can show that he cares about someone other than himself so that he can get Reese back. So he thinks it's a chance, Wade thinks it's a chance to win Reese back, but of course, naturally, instead of completely focusing on getting Reese back, he ends up naturally getting feelings for Elijah. This definitely sounds like not a mix of like not 10 Things I Hate About You, but what is the other one? She's All That. It's very reminiscent of She's All That. I would not be surprised if this is comp for She's All That. It sounds exactly like She's All That. If y'all remember that movie from the 90s. It definitely sounds like that. A lot. All right, last week of the month. Um, Kylie Reid has another book coming out. I did not read her first book. I've been very hesitant to deal with Miss Kylie Reid because of what I heard of Such a Fun Age, that it's not written for us, by us. And so I've been hesitant to try it out, but she does have a new one coming out called Come and Get It. This is a resident assistant at University of Arkansas, accepts an unusual opportunity from a professor, and then things get messy um, things when people find out about her new side hustle. Then we have Mrs. Quinn's Rise to Fame. This is adult fiction. I thought this was interesting. It follows the main character by the name of Jenny. She's married for 59 years. Her husband ends up passing away, and so she decides to do something for herself. She enters a cooking slash baking competition, but then things start to kind of unravel through the course of this. So, um, interesting, kind of like lighthearted, whimsical cover for something that feels like it's going to be a little darker. And then last one on this one is Hard by a Great Forest. Follows a main character who has fled the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, and was forced to leave his mother behind, and then eventually returns in this book. I thought that that cover was beautiful. Interesting bit of history covered in this book as well. The next one is The House of the Last Resort. This is an adult horror book about an American couple who move into this remote Italian town, and they buy an abandoned house, and then they end up learning the truth about what priests were doing in this house. Now, this might be a little too much for my scary ass, but I, I don't know. I might try it out. Who knows? Um then we have Prima Facie. Is that how you say it? Because y'all know these words are kicking my ass. Um, this is a based on the play of the same name. This is an adaptation of the play of the same name. It follows a criminal defense barrister who's known for her quick-wittedness and her intelligence, and she is well known for getting um, men cleared of any type of accusations or crimes related to sexual assault, until she then becomes a victim of sexual assault and realizes that the systems that she was using to help get her clients off are the very systems that are working against her now in her situation. And that instead of it being a trial about those who have committed the crime, it is a trial of the victim. Um, and so I'm very interested. I've never seen the play, and I had never heard of the play before coming across this title. So, Fasci Prima 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 Facie. Jillian, this don't do this to me, Jillian. All right. The next one that I have, Prima Facie shoe for Jillian. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm just going to stop. The last one that I have on this one is the survivors of the Clotilda. Now, if you have not watched the documentary on, I think it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix or Hulu, but my money is on Netflix because I feel like I was watching and scrolling through some documentaries on Netflix, and there is a whole documentary about the descendants um, of the Clotilda, and talking about this last ship of slaves and the community that thrived after, and the family that is there today. But the catch of it is that um no one can find the remains of the ship, and they've been looking for it. But this specific book does chronicle the history. Um, and like I said, this is the last slave ship to land on US soil. And it was not supposed to hit US soil, from what I learned from documentary. Um, it had already been put into effect that there were supposed to be no more ships docking on US soil with slaves. And it was actually a bet that was made during, I think, like a drunken night. Like literally, it was like, I bet you I could, and it's. I would say if you watch this documentary, like be prepared to be pissed off. Because the fact that the reason why this ship landed in the US was because of a bet is disgusting. But that is the history behind it. And so there is this whole community of people that are still living there, that are descendants of the last ship of slaves that were brought. Um, I gotta unsubscribe. Don't do that to me. um, but I was very, very excited. I didn't know that there was a book coming out, but I've been slowly making my way through that documentary, and it's been very, very enlightening. So I'm happy to see that um there is a book coming out as well. So I'm excited to pick that one up. Um, we have the Invocations coming out. This is a YA paranormal book, um, which is about an orphan witch with dark and deadly powers. I've heard some early things about this one, and people have seemed to enjoy it. So we'll see what happens with that. We have another adult nonfiction, which is Dear Sister. This is about the sister of an incarcerated woman who killed her abusive partner, and how she had to rearrange her life when she got the call and found out that her sister was being imprisoned for the murder, and that she would be responsible for then raising her three children. After gaining custody of the three kids, she set forth in trying to get her sister out of prison. I don't know if her sister has been released from prison, and I don't know the details behind the case. But this has a true crime element to it that I was really interested in. Um, we have the Mayor of Maxwell Street. This one takes place in 1921 Chicago. And the main character, is the daughter of the quote unquote wealthiest Negro in America. She's actually an undercover journalist. And when she finds out that there is an underground crime syndicate going on, she enlists the help of another character by the name of Jay, who is a low level manager of a speakeasy. So if you like historical fiction, kind of with like a mystery element to it, which may also have some romantic undertones to it, that might be one that you would be interested in reading. Then we have a middle grade contemporary, just shy of ordinary. This is about a 13-year-old non-binary homeschooler who makes the decision to start public school post-pandemic, but they have I forget what it's called, the hair picking disorder. I know I can see the word, but I almost can see the word. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. If anybody remembers, please drop it in the chat. But they do have a hair picking disorder, and they were hoping that it would improve by attending a new school, because it got worse during the pandemic and not being able to really manage their stress. And so it kind of details their journey going to a public school, meeting new friends, and learning a little bit more about their Jewish identity. Then we have Go Forth and Tell. This is a children's biography about Augusta Baker. So if you do not know anything about Augusta Baker, please look it up. The reason why story times are considered so important for children. The concept of is not her idea of the concept of oral storytelling, but when kids go to story times at libraries and stuff like that, or if you have it at school, that is oral storytelling. Um, but it is a celebration and a recognition of its importance, and Augusta Baker was at the forefront of that. She worked for New York Public Library, a very well known librarian, very, very highly respected librarian, especially in the children's world of librarianship. And they have done a children's biography about her. She's very adamant in telling Black stories. And so I'm happy to see this. Very, very, just like I was happy to see the Virginia Hamilton one. We also have a James Baldwin biography. It's the first ever children's James Baldwin biography coming out. I'm happy to see like some of these pioneers really, really getting their shine in the areas that they helped shape and develop. Um, yes, that's thank you, y'all. I I've seen this in one other book in if you've ever read the book The Chandler Legacies, one of the characters also has that disorder. So this is only my second time. In all the books that I've read, this is the only second time that I have seen that disorder represented in youth literature. So um it's interesting. The last one that I have on here is The City of Stardust. This is an adult fantasy series or book. Probably gonna end up being a damn series. We all know that. Um, the main character in this is given an ultimatum. She has 10 years to locate her mother or suffer consequences. And so, or she ends up becoming the next victim of this curse. It's a family curse, and so she's trying to and she's going on this quest to find the city of Stardust, um, where her family's legacy supposedly started. So um, that one could potentially be interesting. I'm not saying that it's doesn't exactly necessarily jump up at me, but yeah. Then we have a YA fantasy, which looks like a YA romantasy, if I'm being quite frank with you. And this is called The Dark Fable. Follows a main character who joins a group of thieves. She's able to turn invisible, and she joins a group of thieves that are known for stealing artifacts, obscure and occult artifacts at that. And she discovers how um, within this family, like how it's linked to her own, and the dark secrets that come with that. Next, we have the James Baldwin biography that I was talking about, Jimmy's Rhythm and Blues. First ever picture book biography of James Baldwin. I don't know. I want to know because that artwork looks familiar to me, and I should have made of a notation of who did the art on this. I just want to look it up really quick, y'all. I apologize. Just out of curiosity, if my mind is going in the right direction here. No, Jamego Law. Never seen their artwork before. It's beautiful though. If y'all have a chance to look at that cover more close up, definitely look at it. It looks better close up than it does on that screen, that tiny image. But I'm not familiar with this illustrator at all, unless I've like seen their work in other places and just didn't know it. But this may be their debut illustrations for children. But it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful illustrations. Okay, and the last one that we have on this one is Jose Feeds the World. This is the I put nonfiction too, but really, honestly, it's another children's biography about um, an award-winning chef, food activist, and founder of World Central Kitchen, Jose. Um, and then we have The American Queen. This is another um I would say historical fiction. This is about an enslaved woman who marries a reverend and then leads her people off the plantation to start her own self-proclaimed kingdom. Badass. And I love that cover. Next, we have a YA contemporary slash romance. And this is about a main character who finds out that she figures out that she's undocumented. And so she starts searching for a green card husband. Doesn't want any romantic strings attached. And she decides to set her eyes on the boy next door. Um, which this could be potentially hilarious in some ways. I do like that cover. I think that cover is nice. The last one we have is on this slide is from Yours from the Tower. This takes place in 1896. So it definitely gives like historical fiction slash historical romance vibes. It follows three main characters, um, and they all live very different lives, and their stories are shared through the course of letters. which could or could not be interesting. I think it'll be interesting though. Um, Second to last one we have is Confrontations. It's an adult fiction book. This is about a mixed race teenager who's living in the Netherlands. She spends months at a juvenile detention for a crime that she has committed, and she spends sorry for a crime she did not commit, and she has to come to grips with that experience. And the last one we have is a YA poetry book called Poemhood, and it follows a group of or details a group of Black voices, past and present, um, that talk about race, belonging, history, Black joy, Black pain. I feel like this one has a pretty extensive lineup and names that y'all are probably familiar with its beautiful cover. Um, Amber McBride is a part of it. I knew that one already. Um, it's Amber McBride, Taylor Bias, and Erica Martin. Those are the three. Wait, they're that's who it's edited by, but it features 37 different poets. Um, it includes people like Kwame Alexander, James Baldwin, Evie Zaboy, Archie Lord, Nikki Giovanni, Gwendolyn Brooks. Wow, that's a powerhouse. Yep, that is a powerhouse. Okay, y'all, that's it. We're done. That's it. I'm tired too. We're done. That is it, my friends. That was 2 hours and 42 minutes. But we did it. Okay. Um, we did it. We made it through 150, 150 new releases for January. Y'all got some books to read now. Okay. You know what? I'll be back next month with February's. Hopefully February's will not be as much, but the early part of the year is very release heavy. Um, Summer's very release heavy. It slows down, I feel like this, like October, November, December is probably the slowest quarter of the year for releases, which is why I never really did have that much, but I have not ever done it this way before. And so doing it this way, you're going to see a lot. January, February, March, probably going to be a lot. Because the thumbnail said 80 plus, because I wasn't sure what my final number was going to be. And I just left it at, even when I knew that it was going to be over 100, I just left it at 80, just because I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't feel like changing the thumbnail. But it was 157 new releases that we just went over for just January, mind you. We will do February. Um, I'm hoping we'll do February by the second or third week. I already know, like, y'all know that whenever I do orders for my library, I order 2 months in advance. So I'm already ordering for March of next year. So I've seen the February releases, and February is a heavy month too. I don't know I have to go back through and pick like because I also do not highlight every single book that's coming out. I can't do that. So I kind of cherry pick like what I think would be most interesting or what I have interest in reading. So I don't know if when I go back through February's releases, if it will be as much as January's. Um, but yeah. But I hope y'all enjoyed. Thank you for sticking with me for 2 hours and 44 minutes. You're greatly appreciated. Hopefully, the second or third week of January, I will share the link for February's new releases, and we'll see where we're at with that. I should probably go ahead and start doing that PowerPoint now, so y'all can get ready for all the books. But I'm not a menace, Erin. Good night, y'all. I will see y'all later. I should have one more video going up before the new year. I should is the operative word here. But if I don't, happy new year. Please be safe. Um, and I will talk to y'all like this next year. Bye.